on. Okay, let's get started today. Um, can we get started, please? Okay, I changed my slide, my title slide. This is what it used to look like, and now I've changed it. And the reason for that is that YouTube, all of the videos that I've done that have this title slide, that picture, have been put into restricted mode. Which means that if you put YouTube in restricted mode and search for John Haller Prophecy Update or Fellowship Bible Chapel Prophecy Update, you will not see any of those in your search results. Now, if you're not in restricted mode, it's okay. So if you're seeing those, then don't worry about it. But some people put things in restricted mode because it is a way to protect children from um, bad videos, violent videos, pornographic videos that might make their way onto YouTube. So I'm in the same category. So for example, I did a search. I mentioned last week this video that I saw Lady Gaga do. And it was, so I searched for that in restricted mode and it didn't show up. So I'm in the same category, I guess, as Lady Gaga. Dennis Prager, who does Prager University, has 30 or 40 of his videos that are in restricted mode. And they're very well done. They promote conservative values. There's one talking about, I don't know, any number of subjects, being in favor of traditional marriage, other videos like that. Their content is considered too adult. Now think about this. Think that YouTube considers that too adult, or that it needs to be restricted. It's shadow banning is what it is. And we've noticed that some people have said that they've been automatically unsubscribed from our YouTube channel, so you might want to go back and just check if you've subscribed to it or haven't subscribed to it and want to, you can subscribe to it. So I'm going to try this week, I'm going to put up this as the title slide for the video, and we'll see how it goes. And it's actually, I think, a very cool picture anyway. It's a picture of the Western Wall in Jerusalem. And I don't know where I found it, but I like the way it's composed because it's kind of half black and white and half color, and I just think it's a very cool photo. And I've used it before. I want to remind you about this. Morel Conference, November 16th through the 18th in Swanwick. I better learn how to say this. Alfreton, England. The Morel Conference I'll be speaking at with Jacob and John Peters, Israel Prophecy and You. I also have I'm working on some talks that might relate to the things that Pastor Steve talked about the first hour, because I think that is something that's related to Bible prophecy. I'm also working on updating my convergence slide. I haven't done that for a number of years, just because this one's, I'm getting tired of it. And we live at this time where the world seems, I mean, did you notice this week that things seem a little bit disruptive, or that things have been disrupted? Geopolitically and politically in our country. And I'll talk about the first one for just a moment, because I know that I'm a lawyer and people expect me to talk about things in this Judge Kavanaugh hearing. This is purely political. It gets very difficult to find out exactly what is true. These are old allegations. And while I'm not necessarily a fan of Judge Kavanaugh, I don't even really know if I've talked about it. I have concerns about any Supreme Court pick because they get there for life and they change over time. People that you might thought were conservative turn out to be not so conservative, like Anthony Kennedy, who Judge Kavanaugh will be replacing if he's approved. But I just wish that the Republicans would have some courage and just hold the vote, for crying out loud. This is ridiculous. I saw a CNN interview this morning on a Twitter page. I didn't have time to download it. CNN was asking, there were 5 women, some Republicans, some Democrat. I think to each person they said, this is ridiculous. There's no allegation of rape. This is 35 years old. He's lived an exemplary life since. And this is purely political. It is a purely political ploy. And what appears to me to be a good man is having his name dragged through the mud. The Kimberly Strassel, you might check out Kim Strassel as her Twitter account. She's one of the better columnists in America. She writes for the Wall Street Journal and other publications. Along with Heather McDonald, I think Kimberly and Heather are 2 of the best. I would put them up in the category. I mean, I like, as you know, Caroline Glick and Melanie Phillips. And I put Kimberly Strassel up there with them. She has a series of tweets this morning that she put out about the whole situation that's going on. And she's analyzed it. She got a copy of the email that went to the Washington Post that led to the article. And she said, look, originally it was, I was at a party with 4 boys. This is what this professor says. It was a party with 4 boys. Now it's 3 boys and a girl. So what Kimberly Strassel has done is they've gone to each of the other 3 people. And every one of them says, I have no recollection of anything like this happening. Don't even remember being at a party like this. So now but we're gonna drag it out all week. I heard this morning that Jeff Flake, if ever a person, Senator Flake from Arizona, if ever a person got the name at birth that he deserved, it was a prophecy. The word is he's going to vote present. And that just means if one Republican flips, he won't be approved. And then it will drag on past the midterms. And listen, if you think Judge Kavanaugh gets affirmed, sworn into the Supreme Court, starts hearing cases, if you think that it's over then, you are very naive. There will be calls for impeachment, mark my words. It will not stop. The civil discourse in this country is completely destroyed. And frankly, it's destroyed by one half of the political spectrum, and it's tolerated by the other half, and it shouldn't be. And enough is enough. Just hold the vote. When I see this happening, I am very concerned about where the United States ends up. Victor Davis Hanson, who is the preeminent war historian on planet Earth. He's taught at Stanford, at the Hoover Institution, lives out in California. And he wrote this week that he was drawing the parallels between other countries that have gone through civil wars and where we are right now. And he said, we are at that point. And this is a war historian who's saying that, so I would pay attention to him. Everywhere you look is this, I can only describe it as a fascist, totalitarian attitude on the part of many people, whether it comes from Google or Twitter or Facebook. It is to shut down any opposing views at all, particularly conservative views. And look, it in my heart, if I could ban Dianne Feinstein and Nancy Pelosi, I would do it. I mean, you know, I read them because I want to know. I don't know how else to say this. Pam and I talked about it this morning. She says, "Why do you listen to that?" And I said, "Because I want to know what the enemy's doing." And I really mean it, the enemy, because it is ultimately, folks, what we are seeing in our world and culture. The New Testament tells us that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers in high places. It is ultimately a spiritual battle. And if what is going on, if what we're seeing on earth today is a manifestation of a greater spiritual battle going on in the heavenlies, it's a mess up there too, where we can't see it. And I do think that this is a manifestation of it. Now, Katie Hopkins, I think is an important voice. I would say, I'm sure, and I don't know if I need to do a disclaimer. Every time I talk about somebody or quote somebody does not mean that I agree with them or I agree with everything that they do, but I appreciate the fact that somebody is saying something. And so in England, Great Britain, she has been speaking out. She speaks out about Tommy Robinson and some of the things that he's been going through. And here, this was her tweet this week. Last year in the United Kingdom, 9 people a day were arrested for writing hurty words online. 9 people a day. Process that. In England, in the United Kingdom. 9 people a day are arrested. Now, I've done some criminal work in my day, and I will tell you that everybody says, well, you know, you just get a lawyer and defend yourselves. I can tell you that they do this. The cost of defending yourself is enormous. And I know this. I told somebody this week, I couldn't afford me based on what I have to bill out at my hourly rate. And I don't get all of it, trust me. So she wrote this. Right now, one British police force is actively policing emotions. What next? Here was a little testimony that she gave in front of some panel of people who are involved in policing this. Here's what she said.
The United Kingdom is in crisis regarding racism, xenophobia and intolerance, not because of Brexit, although, according to our liberal press, all Brexiteers are racist xenophobes who have to be introduced to their own reflection in the mirror or taught how to work Velcro. I'm a Brexiteer. And not because the stats on hate crime are rising rapidly, and of course they are. In 2016, 3,300 people were detained for posting offensive messages online. Last year, the British police arrested 9 people a day for their thoughts online. In the United Kingdom, hurty words have become a policing priority in London, where more than 100 children have been stabbed to death since the start of the year. Our Muslim mayor decided to allocate 1.7 million Great British pounds to a specialist online hate squads to police words. Knives are doing considerably more damage. Our crisis in the UK is that when you define anything other than approved thought as racist, xenophobic or intolerant, good people dare not share an opinion for fear of prosecution. We have become intolerant to alternative opinions or views or ideas. In fact, just last week, a police force in the UK urged people to report insults which make them feel bad, even if they're not crimes, under the slogan #HateHurts. Police have called upon members of the public to report incidents that made them feel hurt. Hurt is an emotion. In the UK in 2018, we are policing emotion. What next? Policing for feeling proud? And it doesn't take too much searching in our recent history to show what happens to those who dare challenge the system or the establishment. For the crime of standing in the street repeating information already in the public domain, Tommy Robinson was tried and convicted within 5 hours and sentenced to 13 months in jail. The British state is intolerant of speech regarding majority Pakistani Muslim rape squads in the UK. Our British daughters, victims of these grooming gangs, were called white trash. But in the UK, racism can only happen if you're black. The Lord Chief Justice himself said that Tommy Robinson was improperly tried, improperly convicted, improperly sentenced, and improperly treated in prison. Even as we sit here right now, Marine Le Pen has been ordered by a judge in France to undergo psychiatric testing for tweets criticising ISIS to see if her mental health could be a risk to the public. They want to label her as a mad woman for criticising terrorists. The French state is tolerant of terrorists, but intolerant of their critics. What madness is this?
And it is mad, and here's a big article from the Independent in the United Kingdom about Marie Le Pen. And she's refusing to undergo psychiatric tests. Now, tests, what did she do? What was so horrible that, and look, some of her views, I think, are blatantly wrong, okay? But what happened? Somebody in France accused her of being, you're just like ISIS. So what she did was she went to the internet and she pulled off pictures of ISIS beheading people, slaughtering people, crucifying people, and posted them. Now she's being ordered to undergo psychiatric examination because she had the audacity to post the truth. This should be shocking to everyone. Tommy Robinson, by the way, made a point the other day, and he said there were 3 Muslim young men who were going around town, I forget what town they were in, and they were going up to people, are you a Muslim? If they could not recite in Arabic that there's no God but Allah and Muhammad is his prophet, they beat them up. Tommy Robinson, when he reported, as Katie Hopkins said, and it did, I think, violate a prior court order that he was subject to, but he was talking about standing on the street. You've seen the video, talking to his iPhone. And he was talking about what was going on with these rape gangs. He was sentenced to, I believe, 30 months in prison. So the 3 guys who were going around beating up people, what do you think they got? Well, they got 42 months. One got 18 weeks in jail or prison for beating people up. This is madness. If I didn't know better, I would say that the world seems to be coming apart at the seams and that we're getting closer to the Lord's return. Oh, wait, I do know that. I do know better, and we are. This is a report that somebody sent me. There'll be some sound here in a minute, guys. But this is a report from Australian Broadcasting Corporation or company talking about the surveillance society in China. And I mentioned the social credit scores, and you see, this is not made up. Look at the surveillance cameras that are all over China. China wants to install, the number I heard, it was like 250 million more cameras. And so he went, and here he is, he's crossing the crosswalk, and it's like, you're illegal, you need to get back, you're illegally crossing the road. They would love this in downtown Columbus. And and you can see they're using facial recognition. On the road, they identify cars without even doing the license plate. So he interviewed this journalist who has been an award-winning journalist, had a couple of million followers on his social media, and now he has been restricted because his social credit score is too low. So they're going to interview him here in just a second. So the sound's coming on in just a second, and I'll sort of read what he says since he's speaking in Chinese. Award-winning investigative journalist, essentially under house arrest.
Suddenly locked out of society. Under a pilot social credit scheme, he'd been blacklisted as dishonest.
我有一些律师朋友，也有一些法官朋友，
Our friends who are lawyers and judges, they told me that these so-called
失信是因为欠钱，
dishonest personnel are people in debt. I don't owe anyone
我是
money,
不能够把我这个
so I
名单
shouldn't be on the blacklist.
Who maintains he has fully met the terms of his 2015 case. He believes his blacklisting is political, but he has no way of challenging it.
那个我有两个
There are a
看
lot
两
of
方面看
people
法。第一个是很多
who are on the
错
blacklist
误的
wrongly.
被纳入这个信用系统的人，他没法
But they
摆
can't
脱。
get off it.
His poor social credit rating has shut down his travel options and confined him to effective house arrest in Chongqing.
我现在是
Right now,
已
he
经被
says
限
my
制这
ability
个
to travel is
自由
limited.
的出行了，就是订
I
票啊
can't book
高铁和
high-speed
飞机
trains
都
or
不行。
flights.
我跟你演示一
I'll
下，
show you.
我们用这个 APP
And
来
he goes to an
订票
app where they book tickets
现在
online.
是我们从重庆到西安，我们来订一张票，
Let's
订
try
一
to
张
book a ticket for the next
过几
few
天的票
days.，
And what does it say?
然后就显示
It
那个
says
出
I
票失
failed to
败，
make a booking.
说我已经被法院依法限
That
制
my
高消
access
费
to high-speed
限
rail
制
is
乘
legally
坐
restricted.
G 字头列车。
Whose social media accounts have also been closed. Before his arrest, he had nearly 2 million followers. It's where he published much of his journalism.
我曾经有过好几个微博，10几个，这些微博号现在都没有了。
And so all of his social media accounts are gone. We complain about Facebook jail. This is real jail. Christians being persecuted, people restricted travel, and everybody's praising the great economic engine of China. Frankly, it scares me. And it should scare you. It should also scare you that social media companies like Google are working closely with China to put in censored search engines. And my reaction is, I think they already have those. They just need to turn the filters up a little bit more. So Prophecy Update is in restricted mode on Google, YouTube. Good job, guys. Good job. Foreign policy. One of the signs of the end is wars and rumors of wars. And everywhere I looked this week, there were, of course, wars, rumors of wars, actual conflicts. And I saw this as an article, I think it was just published this morning at Foreign Policy. The coming crime wars. Future conflicts will mostly be waged by drug cartels, media groups, gangs, and terrorists. It's time to rethink our rules of engagement. Do you remember the old comedy routine when, and I don't remember who it was, and I hesitate to say because they've probably been subject to Me Too allegations. And so, but, you know, they were talking about the conflict between the British and the Americans in the Revolutionary Wars. And, you know, they had like a coin toss. Coin toss, you choose. Americans, what do you choose? We choose to hide behind rocks and trees and wear regular clothes. And the British, then you must wear red uniforms that march in a straight line. I thought it was pretty funny. But the rules of engagement in wars they've changed. Drug cartels, Mexico, Brazil, falling apart. Nicaragua, Costa Rica's having an immigration problem from Nicaragua because people are flooding across the border. Brazil, Ecuador are closing their borders because of people fleeing from Venezuela. People in Europe are closing their borders because of people fleeing from the Middle East. There are somewhere around 70 million refugees sort of in transit right now in the world. 70 million. That's like 1/5 the population of the United States on the move. It's a crisis. It's something that's never been seen in human history. But listen to this, and remember, Jesus said wars, rumors of wars. So it says this: wars are on the rebound. There are twice as many civil conflicts today, for example, as there were in 2001. And the number of non-state armed groups participating in the bloodshed is multiplying. According to the International Committee of the Red Cross, roughly half of today's wars involve between 3 and 9 opposing groups. Just over 20% involve more than 10 competing blocs. In a handful, including ongoing conflicts in Libya and Syria, hundreds of armed groups vie for control. For the most part, these warring factions are themselves highly fragmented, and today's warriors are just as likely to be affiliated with drug cartels, mafia groups, criminal gangs, militias, and terrorist organizations as with armies or organized rebel factions. Today's crime wars hark back to a pre-Westphalian era of perpetual conflict involving feudal kingdoms and marauding bandits. Today's crime wars hark back to a pre-Westphalian era. Oh, that's a repeat. This partly explains why the norms developed to regulate armed conflict are now inadequate. And it's true. Everywhere you look, I was looking, because of some of the things going on to Syria, and I'll talk about in this a moment, I was looking at a YouTube channel put out by a pro-Syrian group called South Front. Now, I hear people talking about, it's just Israel's the one who's causing all the conflicts in Syria. They're trying to start a regional war. They're trying to take over the whole Middle East. They want world war. Well, I was going to pull up the actual audio from his Friday show, Rick Wiles of True News. If you want to, if you don't want to drink espresso in the morning and you need a shot of adrenaline to get out of bed, listen to the day before's True News. He said, if Israel did not exist, there would be no conflict in the Middle East. The Zionists want to run the world. This is it is unbelievable. I cannot say exactly what I think of his views, because then I would be banned. Foreign policy has a whole new issue on war, talking about the future of war. Look at some of the things that they talk about here. And just think about it. We know all this stuff is coming with surveillance and a mark of the beast, and if you don't have the mark, you can't buy or sell. All these things are coming in a period of time in the 70th week of Daniel, mainly in the last half of that period. And look at what they talk about. They talk about all these different things. Gremlins. These are different things that are being developed. The U.S. military needs low-cost, operationally flexible killer drones. The answer? Gremlins. Unmanned drones just a few yards in length that essentially act in swarms. I even saw a picture or a video of a guy with, like wires around his head, sort of an elaborate headset, who can, without his hands, control a swarm of drones with his mind. This is actually existing. We've seen the videos about what can happen in with a swarm of drones. It continues. In combat scenarios, existing aircraft such as C-130 transport planes would deploy an army of gremlins to fight on their behalf and then position themselves at a safe distance. Once the shooting stopped, the transport planes would retrieve the mini drones. Each gremlin has an expected lifetime of 20 uses. The Gremlins project was launched in 2015. Talos. In Greek mythology, Talos was a giant bronze automation who protected the island of Crete. The U.S. military's version, the Tactical Assault Light Operator's suit, takes its inspiration from that legend. Also known as the Iron Man suit, Talos is a body armor designed to protect special operations troops from both bullets and explosions. SLAM-R. The Standoff Land Attack Missile Expanded Response, first introduced in 2000, is one of the most precise missiles used by the U.S. Navy. That's because it's equipped with a man-in-the-loop technology, which allows a weapons technician to review data in real time to help guide the missile toward its final target. CHAMP. The Counter-Electronics High-Power Microwave Advanced Missile Project may sound like a science fiction, but it relies on an old-fashioned concept, microwave technology. CHAMP uses electromagnetic pulses to knock out an enemy's electricity grid and computer systems without any cost to human life. It should say, any cost to human life right away. I was also reading that we have a major shortage of truck drivers in the United States. And if you've ever been to the Port of Los Angeles and the Port of Long Beach and seen the containers that come in through that port, it's shocking. Everybody should go see it. I mean, it's amazing. When I was a child, we used to shop at Fisher Foods on Cleveland Avenue in Canton, Ohio. And downstairs they had cartoons for the kids, Bugs Bunny, Yosemite Sam, those type of things, Roadrunner. But to get there, you had to walk down with your mother down through the vegetable aisle. In the winter, it was fine. There was nothing there. There was some lettuce that looked like it had been used as a soccer ball. You remember these days. Now you go to the store and it's unbelievable. But all that stuff, there's only like a 3, 4, 5 day supply in the store. You need trucks to do all that. And any disruption will do this. JEDI, the Star Wars reported acronym, stands for the Joint Enterprise Defense Infrastructure. It is designed to serve as a cloud computing and storage hub for sharing data among intelligence agencies, allies, and contractors when fully operational. And what could go wrong with that, right? Sharing all of this information. HAWC, the Pentagon's hypersonic air-breathing weapons concept. Some of our enemies already have these. They can take out an aircraft carrier with one missile. Let's see, there's a number of these others. They also talk about lasers. The laser weapon system emits highly focused energy to blast both surface-based and airborne threats. Sounds good. The system's greatest asset is its speed. Its beam travels at the speed of light, which is up to 50,000 times faster than a ballistic missile. Better yet, laws can hone in on the engine of a ship and disable the vessel without sinking. It's also remarkably inexpensive to use. Each laser blast costs less than $1. It's Star Wars. This article goes on, this magazine goes on. 1 million mistakes a second. Ultra-fast computing is critical to modern warfare, but it also ensures a lot could go very wrong very quickly. And we'll talk about one of these things. Then it also talks about hackers for hire. And what we've done is bad actors are outsourcing themselves. They're not really beholden to any particular nation state. This relates back to the drug cartels and the gangs that the article posted this morning on Foreign Policy was talking about. Now, if it sounds like this is all frightening and that sort of, it is. It really is. Especially when you see what's going on over a Supreme Court nomination and the animosity and everything that's being generated. What happens when those people are in charge? It is concerning. And it should motivate you to pray for the Lord's return. Because I don't think you can walk this back. It is what it is. There's a good article, I really don't have time to go into it, called The Underground Caliphate over at The Intercept. ISIS has not vanished. It's fighting a guerrilla war against the Iraqi state. And it's true. I mean, Sunni versus Sunni, Shia, or Sunni versus Shia, ISIS versus everybody in Iraq, total meltdown, water shortages. Turkey and Iran are cutting off water flow, the Euphrates and Tigris rivers in Iraq, which was called the Fertile Crescent in Bible times. And it was part of the Fertile Crescent. And the rivers are drying up. And when people don't have water, they get a little bit testy for obvious reason. So maybe I'll talk about this a little bit more. This is graffiti on a wall in around Baghdad. Well, this week we had some things happen in the Middle East, and I'm pretty sure that this slide is out of order, so I will come back to it later. I want to talk a little bit more about Ari Fuld, because last Sunday he had just been murdered in a terrorist attack in Gush Etzion Junction. We've driven through that junction. He was a he was a Torah teacher. He loved Israel. He loved Judaism. But, by all estimates that I've seen, he was a man, as the headline in the Jerusalem Post last Monday morning said, he lived and died as a hero. The thing that concerns me, and the Gatestone Institute had a great article, Mahmoud Abbas, Fresh American Blood on His Hands. Ari Fuld was born in America. In his teens, he immigrated with his family to Israel. He was married, father of 4. And what happened at this meeting you see here on the right was that Mahmoud Abbas said that there was a scheme involved that was being instituted by Israel to allow Jews to actually pray in the Al-Aqsa Mosque on the Temple Mount. First off, it was a complete, total lie. Now, there are people pushing to allow Jews to pray on the Temple Mount, but I don't know of any organization that wants Jews to be allowed to pray inside the Al-Aqsa Mosque. It was a bald-faced lie. A young 17-year-old Palestinian Muslim Arab man heard that, what Abbas said on last Saturday, and Sunday morning he went to Gush Etzion to look for someone to kill. He took a knife. He stabbed Ari. He heard Ari speaking English. He went into the falafel shop there, and he said, do you speak English? And there was a lady there. After he stabbed Ari, he started chasing this lady, and Ari and another man shot him, at least lightly wounding him enough that he could no longer go after him. This is what the article says. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas said on Saturday that the Palestinian Authority was coordinating with Jordan to take a unified stance on the possibility that Israel would allow Jews to pray formally at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, as in the Abrahamic Mosque. Israel may decide there is no evidence that prayers are permitted for the Jews in the Al-Aqsa Mosque like Muslims, and this means that the situation of the Abrahamic Mosque, Abbas told reporters before the meeting of the PLO Executive Committee. He also pointed out that the issue of Al-Aqsa would be among the issues to be presented to the General Assembly of the United Nations in September in New York, this week. This will be the parade of people who really should be banned from entering the United States, like Abbas should be banned. This is the same thing that was said back in 1929. And Ari Fuld, he had to go look up his videos on Hebron. And he loved Hebron. He loved the Cave of Machpelah. This is where Abraham and Isaac and Rebekah and Jacob and Leah are buried. Of this there is no doubt. That mosque was taken over by Islamic forces many years ago. Hebron used to be a Jewish city. It's their second holiest site next to the Temple Mount. In 1929, the Hajaman al-Husseini, the highest ranking Muslim in Israel, what was called Palestine, said that Jews were trying to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque. 69 Jews were slaughtered by Muslims in Hebron that day. Jews were kicked out of Hebron. For 700 years at the mosque, at the Cave of Machpelah there, Jews were not allowed to go past the seventh step. For over 700 years, they were only allowed to go pray at the one corner of the structure that Herod built a couple thousand years ago. In the 67 war, they were allowed to move back into parts of Hebron. They built a synagogue. They divided what was a mosque up there. They put a synagogue part up there. You can go to both if you go to Hebron. But it was a lie that the Hajaman al-Husseini put out, and 69 Jews were slaughtered. And I mean slaughtered. So the witness there said that his killer deliberately targeted him. It was announced that the Palestinian Authority is going to pay the attacker's family a sum of money, 1,400 shekels a month for 3 years. Prime Minister Netanyahu went to visit the family prior to the funeral of Ari Fuld. I want to play about a 4-minute clip. First, you'll hear from one of Ari's brothers. You'll hear from his wife and then from his daughter. You have to listen closely because the recording was not good. He was killed in the morning, and 11:30 that night they had the funeral. This is how they do it. There were thousands of people there, thousands. So here's his brother.
I want you all, I beg of you all, to remember what I'm about to say. Many years ago already, I understood that there are some things that we don't understand, but the Lev Shalom, I can say that Hashem has a plan. We know, and I guess now everybody knows due to social media, that even until your last breath, you were and always will be a Gibor, guarded, protected, and fought for our and our Aretz.
This is his wife, Miriam.
My dearest Ari, this is my last chance to say all the things that need to be said, so you better be listening. You were a good man. I'm not sure how to go on without you. We were born less than 24 hours apart, and it seems we lived our lives side by side. No one knew it would be cut so short this morning on your way to do the shopping that I asked you to do. You were always running towards danger instead of away from it, and you never backed down from a fight because you knew you were in the right. You fought for what you believed in. You've left behind a legacy for the entire world to savor. Videos and stories that we will be telling for many years to come. We always watched the news together and wondered how families and wives could be so strong But that's what we do. We get knocked down and we get right back up. Because life is a package deal. And we can't pick and choose. We must accept the good and the bad. And now it's my turn to be strong and continue onwards. I used to tell you, just tell me everything is going to be all right. I would give anything to hear you say that right now. I promise to take care of Tamar. I promise to take care of Naomi. I promise to take care of Nick here. I promise to take care of Natan. Thank you for 24 crazy years together. 4 beautiful, strong, amazing children you have given me. I love you, I love you, I love you. I always will.
This is his oldest daughter, Tamar.
I woke up this morning and came downstairs. And I looked out the window and I saw my dad walking out with the keeper that I made him. And I laughed because he finally matched it to his shirt. My dad always told me that if anything ever happens or anybody tries to attack you, you act like a crazy person. I didn't see the video, but I already imagined exactly. One sentence my dad always told me that stuck with me forever was, if life is easy, you're living it wrong. Life is meant to be hard. And that's what I'm doing now. It'll be hard, I'm sure, but at least I know I'm doing something right for you.
Well, it's very emotional. You saw the video there of him running when he was stabbed. His aorta was severed, and despite that, he still ran 60 meters. And you saw him jump a wall. So when I hear people on the radio talk about evil Zionists, it makes me sick. So there's a relationship between us as Christians in the church and Jews, whether we like it or not. Jesus was a Jew. He was not, as they will say at the Christ at the Checkpoint coming up in a few weeks in Oklahoma City, he was not Palestinian refugee. They lie. Been a lot of talk recently. I looked at this article last week by Dr. Mordecai Kadar. The American government confronts the Palestinian Authority House of Cards. In Al Arabiya, there was an article closing down Palestinian embassy in Washington. End of the cause? ? Was published last Tuesday. Yom Kippur. Look at some of the things that are said. The presence of a Palestinian diplomatic mission in the U.S. came as a result of the Oslo Agreement, which recognized Palestinian presence and which was also recognized internationally for the first time. Since the beginning of the conflict, everyone knew that changing the Palestinian situation can only happen either via war, and the possibility of its eruption is like a mirage, or negotiations. Due to the Palestinian officials' unrealistic approach, they showed up to negotiate when it was too late. In fact, there were reports in the news this morning that a boss is coming to New York. He was telling Macron of France that we're ready to negotiate. The article continues. The Palestinians now have so little. As time passed by, their rights on the land decreased due to their continuous rejection and verbal bids. When delegates dispatched by President Trump went to the occupied Palestinian territories to explain their ideas, the Palestinian leadership refused to receive them. The leadership was angry because the American government had executed an old decision to move its embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Of course, it is possible that there is intent to get rid of the Palestinian cause by eliminating the refugee status in the UN, suspending their budget, decreasing support to the authority, and ending its diplomatic presence. All this is very possible and is the result of the laziness and failure in managing previous peace projects over the course of 30 years. Not to say the corruption. The massive homes have been built by Palestinian leadership throughout Judea and Samaria. Mansions that would rival Beverly Hills. I've seen them with my own eyes. And then keeping other people in squalor while you live like a king. It's normal that a day comes when the rest of the stances are finalized. One of the major mistakes is believing that Palestine is a pivotal cause on which Arabs and Muslims will not give up on. Truth is, they have given up on it a long time ago, as each state is preoccupied with its causes. Egypt has finalized its stance since Camp David, and Jordan did the same when it signed the Wadi Arab Treaty. Syria has practically, before them, signed the disengagement agreement after the 1973 war, and the Golan has become Israel's most secure border area. As for Lebanon, it is a helpless country controlled by Iran. Otherwise, it would have been the first Arab country that seeks a peace agreement with Israel. This is the truth, which the dreamers in the Arab world must realize. The truth is what pushed to sign the Oslo Accords, or else he and all other Palestinian leaders will live and be buried in the foreign countries. And so it's translated from Arabic, so that's why some of it's a little bit awkward. And so we'll see things play out in New York City this week at the UN. Will Trump present a peace plan? He may not, I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. Certainly it'll be one of the more important weeks in the UN, I believe, especially given where I think we are on the Bible prophecy timeline with things happening. So let's look at one more thing, and then we'll get out of here. There was, last Sunday I mentioned that there were some missile attacks. Those continued into Monday. There were attacks on Latakia, which is in the far northern part of Syria. You can see on the map there. You can see down here at the bottom, you see the dark area, that's Lebanon, Homs. Idlib is a little bit further north. You see Turkey come down there. Latakia is where the Russians have built a naval base. And there were some attacks done on a warehouse there. There was a lot of controversy about what happened. Initially, Israel was blamed for the shooting down of a Russian aircraft, a IL-20 reconnaissance plane that had 15 Russian soldiers aboard. They were all killed in the crash. Israel had flown 4 F-16s. Low altitude flights over the Mediterranean. It's much easier to do, as you can appreciate, water is fairly flat, so it's easy to do low altitude flights because you don't have to go up and down over mountain ranges and that sort of thing. They came into Latakia, they launched some missiles, they destroyed some warehouses there. These are different graphics that are portrayed this morning. Now the initial reports were, well, let me talk about what happened exactly. Here, this is the Russian Ministry of Defense released this video this morning to show what happened. You will see, the red is the Russian aircraft with 15 Russians aboard. It's a surveillance radar type aircraft. It flies. And then you'll see what happened was the Israeli jets came in low altitude. They did their attack on Latakia. They then sort of started patrolling the area. The Russian jet is still up. Now what happened was that the Russian jet came back. The Syrian, using Russian military defense, thinking it was going to come in for a landing. The claim is that one of the fighter jets sort of shadowed the plane so it would be hidden. You'll see this is what the Russians did with their little computer-generated graphics. And then about 20 missiles were launched by the Syrian forces. They hit the plane. The Israeli aircraft patrolled around a little bit, and then they left and went back to Israel. having destroyed their targets. Now Russia said it's Israel's fault. Then Israel sent their people there. They had a big briefing. This was the, I think, General Shagru, of showing what had happened. What I just showed you was an updated version of what he did last Tuesday in Moscow. They have these regular briefings. There's actually a Russian Ministry of Defense YouTube channel. So, and they really have pretty, by the way, can we get screens that size in here, guys? So, you know, just kidding. They have this giant room with these giant screens and everything. Russia responded. First it was Israel's fault, then it's appeared that Putin backed off of that, said, well, maybe it wasn't, maybe it was Syria was at fault. Some defense people from Israel went to Moscow to meet with everybody, brief them on the Israeli view, and then they came out this morning and they said that the attack was to get rid of this warehouse there in Latakia. And you can see the before and after pictures. It appears that they accomplished their goal in destroying that. A former IDF person, Amos Yadlin, he tweeted this week, the Russian plane was downed by a Syrian SAM surface-to-air missile. Beginners rule in air defense is friend or foe distinction. This long-range Syrian incompetence and recklessness could easily hit a civilian airliner, and there's no such thing as hiding behind an airplane. This is unprofessional. Russian claim is just wrong. But Russia's sticking by that story. That's what they talked about this morning. One thing that appears clear that Russia never mentions is they never really gave the Syrian people who are operating Russian S-400 and S-300 missile defense systems. They never really gave them a code to say, well, is that plane coming in for a landing, is that a friend or a foe? And so it appears they launched 20 of these missiles. They're not cheap. And one of them hit the Russian plane. So, but you can bet that this is going to be used to attack Israel. Here's the commander of the Israeli Air Force, Major General Amikam Norkin, and other IDF officers in Moscow. Putin was angry. Then it says it kind of watches this thing unfolded this week. Then Israel said, well, Russia accepts our take on the Syrian downing of the plane. And then this morning they came out with this briefing and said, the IDF is deceptive. Israel's to blame for downing the plane. And now Putin is coming out and saying, okay, Putin, we're going to put in a no-fly zone along the coast there. So Israel won't be able to come in and do these attacks that they've done. When the Israeli jet was shot down back in, when was, I mean, it seems like February, March, June, I don't remember, February or March. The Syrian person who fired the missile that did that was lauded as a hero. And so there's some thinking on the Israeli side that they were launching a lot of missiles up there to hit an Israeli plane, so they would be a hero too. And I think this is a more logical explanation. So here's what the no-fly zone looks like. You see Cyprus there, the coast of Lebanon. Beirut is that little part that juts out there just above that yellow line. And then, of course, you can see the, I'm sorry, that's Haifa. Let's see if I can put this is Haifa right here, Sea of Galilee, Golan Heights. This is Beirut here on this part. And so the attacks were way up here in the north. They weren't on the border of Israel. Hezbollah got involved, said we got precision guided missiles. You can't stop us, Israel. When we want to attack you, we will attack you. And this is the reason why, because Iran says this, their proxies Hezbollah say this. Israel has to protect itself. I haven't seen Israel wanting to take over Syria. Don't think Russia can't manage it. When I was watching the South Front YouTube channel, They were talking about what's going on and all the different groups that are involved in Idlib. I was going to play it, but I thought, that's really confusing because there are so many different groups in organizations involved, and this one supports this part, but not these people, but this one supports these people and it's like a bowl of spaghetti when you try to draw all the lines that connect everybody. Prime Minister Netanyahu responded, okay, Nasrallah, you want to fight? You'll get one. Come on. Also this week in northern Syria, it was important. We've been talking for a couple weeks about the expected attack on Idlib, that it would be a slaughter, a lot of refugees. Turkey and Russia met this week and reached an agreement on a no-arms zone in Idlib, also a buffer zone. So it appears that eventually something's going to happen, but it looks like it's been put off for a few weeks. In Iran yesterday, 29 or 30 people were killed in a terrorist attack at a military parade in one of the Iranian cities, in I want to say Havra or something like that, but I don't remember the name exactly. So what do you see? You see this wars and rumors of wars. Everything continues to line up. I think that things will calm down a little bit, but I don't think they're certainly not calm under the surface. There's a lot of diplomacy going on. Putin's trying to save face. Israel's saying, look, we won't tolerate these precision-guided missiles in countries to our north by Iran. Iran says they want to kill us. We believe them. I see that there are former Obama administration people, Valerie Jarrett, John Kerry, going and sort of doing shadow diplomacy with Iran. Now, remind you, we've just sat here for months that, remember, there were supposed meetings between Trump and Russia before the election. Oh, and we've had tens of millions of dollars spent investigating that. But John Kerry and Valerie Jarrett, they can go to Iran and negotiate directly with the mullahs and people in charge. But that's okay on parts of this. So, look, a lot of things happening as usual. So I would encourage you to do this. This is my slide of the sort of my view of things happening in the 70th week of Daniel. I have a great desire to see what I have in the upper right-hand side of that slide to come true. That is Romans 11:25. Behold, I show you a mystery. All Israel shall be saved. We need to figure out how we, as a church, relate to that and the heritage of our faith, which is based on that. Not unhitching from the Old Testament, but hitching to it, so we can understand the work of the Messiah that led to our salvation. And that someday, maybe 7 years in a day, all Israel shall be saved. We need to be sharing the gospel. If you're listening to this and you do not believe that Jesus Christ is the only way of salvation, I urge you to make that decision today. Do not delay. Today is the day of salvation. I have shown you today perhaps a dozen or more examples as to why our world can radically change very, very quickly. At this point, I just do not see how it gets walked back. Conflicts are spreading. You saw the foreign policy article. It's moving down to drug cartels. I was in Dayton this week. PBS did a thing on Dayton. My father was from Dayton, Ohio. Downtown Dayton, I was there a lot when I was a kid. It's unbelievable. It's shocking. This was a major American, middle America industrial city. Middletown, Ohio, same thing. Empty buildings, storefronts, no hotels, downtown. It's incredible. And it's sort of like I blinked and it changed. And this is the way things will be in the end times. We talk about convergence, we talk about acceleration, and boy, I think we're living it right now. But listen, when it comes to your relationship to Jesus Christ, you should not delay, because things can change very quickly. You heard Ari Fuld talk at Ari's funeral. I sent him down to the store to do shopping. You heard his daughter say, I was kind of surprised he had a kippah that actually matched his shirt for a change. And he didn't come home. None of us know that. Those of us who are Christians already know that life can go away at any time. You need to be sharing the gospel. You need to be living a holy life, because none of us is guaranteed the next hour. But there is a way of salvation, Jesus Christ, faith in Jesus Christ, and the finished work of him on the cross for you. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much. Lord, I pray that you will continue to motivate us, help us to understand and make sense of, frankly, crazy times. Help us to understand the times, to see what's going on and understand how it fits into your prophetic plan. Bless us this week. In Jesus' name, amen.